The night shift nobody wants. Have you ever wondered what really happens in hospital morgues after dark? Today we're diving into bone-chilling encounters that'll make you think twice about hospitals. Picture this. It's 3 a.m. and the hospital corridors are empty, except for the occasional nurse doing rounds. The lights flicker, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Down in the basement, where the morgue sits, strange noises echo through the cold, sterile air. These aren't just stories to keep you up at night. They're real experiences from hospital staff who've seen things they can't explain. From whispering corpses to phantom surgeons, these encounters have left even the toughest medical professionals shaken to their core. Get ready, because these 3 stories might make you think twice about that late-night hospital visit. Trust me, after hearing these, you'll never look at a hospital the same way again. The Whispering Corpse. You know those horror movies where someone's working alone in a creepy place at night? Well, for morgue technicians, that's just a normal shift. I talked to one guy, let's call him Mike, who told me about the weirdest night of his life. Mike said it started like any other night. He clocked in at 11 p.m., put on his scrubs, and headed down to the morgue. The place was always creepy, with its cold metal tables and harsh fluorescent lights. But Mike was used to it. He'd been doing this job for years. Around 2 a.m., Mike was doing his rounds, checking on the bodies. That's when he heard it. A whisper. So faint he thought he imagined it. He looked around, but the morgue was empty except for the covered bodies. Mike shrugged it off and went back to work. But then he heard it again. This time it was clearer. It sounded like someone saying, "Help me." Mike's heart started racing. He told himself it was just his imagination playing tricks on him. But part of him knew something was seriously wrong. He tried to focus on his work, but the whispers kept getting louder. They were coming from one of the bodies. Mike didn't want to, but he knew he had to check it out. His hands were shaking as he walked over to the table. Mike said he'll never forget what happened next. He slowly pulled back the sheet, and what he saw made him stumble backwards. The body's eyes were wide open, staring right at him. And then its mouth moved, whispering, "Please, help me." Mike freaked out. He ran out of the morgue, yelling for help. When the doctors came down, they couldn't believe it. The person wasn't dead. They were in some kind of coma that made them appear lifeless. Mike said that night messed him up bad. He couldn't sleep for weeks, always hearing those whispers in his dreams. He ended up quitting his job at the hospital. He told me he just couldn't handle being in that morgue anymore, always wondering if the next body might start talking to him. I asked Mike if he ever considered going back to his old job. He just shook his head and said, "Some things you can't unsee, you know? That night changed me. I don't look at death the same way anymore." Mike's story is pretty wild, right? You know how people say time heals all wounds? Well, for the folks who've had these creepy encounters in hospital morgues, time doesn't seem to be doing much healing at all. These experiences stick with them, changing how they see their jobs and even life itself. I talked to a therapist who works with healthcare workers, and she told me something that really got me thinking. She said, "These encounters shake people's core beliefs about life and death. It's not just about being scared. It's about questioning everything they thought they knew." It's wild to think about, right? Like, imagine going to work every day, not knowing if you might see a ghost or hear a dead body whisper. How do you even deal with that? And here's the thing that really messes with my head. What if these experiences are trying to tell us something? What if that line between life and death isn't as clear as we think it is?